Your hockey fan report. Aloha. I am Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, and this is the hockey fan report. Welcome to a very special show. Today, check your ego at the door. We are going to talk about the sexual assault allegations in Chicago and mental health in the NHL. But before we go there, I got a special guest. I'll bring him on in a second. Let's talk a little Blues hockey. Today, we got some news. Braden Shen, who was injured during the Chicago game. If you remember, he went crawling down the tunnel on all fours, came back in the game. Something happened against San Jose. He re-aggravated it. He has been returned to St. Louis for evaluation. He will miss the next two games. Not only that, Torrey Krug is now in COVID protocol, but Ryan O'Reilly is back with the team and skating with the team. So O'Reilly should be back. Krug is going to miss probably his 10 days. Right now, Coach Berube said it best. Our depth is being tested. Yes, it is. And so far, you're coming out of it. Your biggest game is going to be Winnipeg. If you can get through Winnipeg and get a couple of guys back, you should be okay. Well, that's kind of the Blues news that I got. I welcome all of you to this. And one thing, as we get ready to do this, Ashley will be a few minutes late. As we get ready to do this, understand I am allowing all comments. However, when I say that, you are not allowed to attack somebody. You attack somebody, you're gone. Every opinion that they have is allowed. There are some important things that need to be talked about. And yes, I read the 107-page report. It's actually about 75. There's a bunch of pages of references and pictures and things like that. But I read the report. I went over it. And I want to welcome from Coast to Coast Hockey, Mr. Chris Frederick. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, no problem. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to Coast for giving us an affiliation. I really appreciate that. I like that you guys enjoy what we're doing. I've heard nothing but positives from you guys about the show, and I got to thank you a lot.
No, we appreciate having you, and even though I'm a diehard Blackhawks fan, I'm always happy to come on a St. Louis Blues pod.
Hey, no problem. Well, I mean, it is the Blue Note fan, but I'm a hockey podcast.
Absolutely.
I'm Blues centric, but I'm a hockey. See, this is the thing that people have learned about me. I watch all the games because you got to know the teams you're playing.
Absolutely.
Right? You cannot just watch when your team plays. I have the NHL package. I mean, I have ESPN. I watch games that don't matter with the Blues. I watch I've been watching Edmonton a lot. Edmonton's really, really packing it on right now. So they're a team I'm paying attention to. So we talk about it all here, and you have to.
Absolutely. That's I'm the same way. I write for Coast to Coast. I primarily cover the Blackhawks, but breaking news. We were one of the first pages to actually break the Seattle Kraken name news. So we're well connected, and many writers have many connections through some of the teams, and so our goal is really to bring breaking news as quickly as possible to folks, and also give them kind of a recap. Not everybody has the the luxury of watching all the games, and so the page helps give them kind of an insight of what's going around the league.
That's why I've been posting. So I do a pregame, 2 intermissions, and a postgame show. So in the group or on the page, I've been posting the pregame and the postgame, not the intermissions, because I don't want it to be too much.
Yeah.
But I think once they get in, guys are starting to find out where to find me besides the page, so that helps out. So let's really get into what today is. Today is a chance for everybody who's watching this to talk about what happened in Chicago, and not just Chicago, but mental health in the NHL. In the last couple of years, it's really come to light. You're seeing more players come out with saying, hey, I need a break, something's wrong, anxiety, depression, some of the drugs that they're put on aren't helping, a lot going on. Ashley's here. I thought I sent you a link, Ashley, but I'll resend it just to make sure. But so I actually just wrote an article not too long ago about Price and mental health in the NHL. and talked about it. And I actually think the NHL is doing a decent job, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what most folks don't really understand is the amount of stress that goes into making it to a professional league. Even to the minor league level is just a huge accomplishment. But you're talking, 15 to 17 years of hard work, and this kind of comes into play into what we're going to talk about today with the scandal is, when you're on the precipice of making the NHL and everything you worked for, and there's this person here who makes you feel that they hold their fate and your fate in their hands. It can be definitely a tough thing to deal with.
Absolutely. And first of all, Ashley, welcome to the show. Ashley, I just want to double check with you. I know we've talked a couple of times. You know that we're going to open this up to all opinions.
It's fine.
I want to make sure you're still good to go.
I'm good.
Okay. And I think that's fair. So let's talk a little bit about this. Now, first of all, and this was brought up on my page, I still refer to the person as John Doe. And I feel he was outed, to be honest with you. I feel his name was forced to be out there. And because of that, I don't want to play into that. So I'm going to stick with the John Doe. I asked that everybody else stick with calling him John Doe for me, because when this originally came out, it was a John Doe lawsuit. And it was John Doe up until TSN kind of pushed that interview. And so that's why I'm doing that. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Well, Guy, I do want to say one thing. Through some folks I know in the industry, he wanted his name to be out there. He felt that it would lend a much bigger impact than just being John Doe. And that's when he made the decision to go to the TSN and do that interview.
Okay.
Rick was the one who's been through this process and been reporting on this for probably 8 to 10 months.
Yeah.
So he's known from day one. And Kyle felt that his name being out there would help people understand, like, it's not just a fringe guy that had no future. I mean, people don't understand the type of player he was coming up. I mean, he was an absolute monster. I mean, he was going to be the next power forward in this league. So he wanted it to be out there, that it wasn't just some random person who really didn't have much of a chance of making the league, and really what it's done to him. And it's I don't know if you watched that full interview, but you can just see his emotion. And how it's helping him heal.
Okay, I got that. I just the optics of it, right? The optics of this absolutely felt as if it was, we're going to release your name, so you might as well do this interview. That was the optics of it to me, and that's why I stuck with calling him John Doe. Absolutely,
understandable. But like I said, through folks, I kind of some back channels do know that he did want his name to be out there.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I just know how it felt to me, and that's why I said what I said, and I did it the way I did it. So in March of 2021, we first hear about this. There is a lawsuit in Chicago against the Blackhawks, and I think the NHL, I'm not sure, and the NHLPA stating that there was a sexual assault in Chicago that the Blackhawks knew about and did nothing about. That was the first that we heard about this. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and around that time, John McDonough, who was president of the Blackhawks, was all of a sudden let go, and nobody in the city kind of knew why. The Blackhawks were a cash cow; they were bringing in money left and right. Considered one of the premier franchises in the league. He was running the business side of things, but he was over hockey ops at the time. So it was very peculiar that all of a sudden, out of thin air, he was fired, and nobody really kind of knew why. And now that we look back on it, we can see that, hey, he came in, he knew about this, and he was the one who covered most of this up. And now we see the result of that. Hindsight's, always 20/20, but
Yeah.
It really, unfortunately, was dealt with very poorly. It's very, very difficult to be a Blackhawks fan today.
Yeah.
I'm sick to my stomach what happened to John Doe.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to wear the Blackhawks sweater. But I truly believe that kind of knowing how the Blackhawks are structured, I don't think Rocky Wirtz or his son knew of the allegations. They run a multi-billion-dollar liquor business. They are not into the day-to-day of the Blackhawks. So I do believe the report said they had no knowledge of them knowing. Brent Sopel came out and said that he believes that the Wirtzes did not know. So I tend to believe that. And as soon as they found something out, you saw John McDonough was gone.
Yeah, well, not only is McDonough gone, fired almost instantly. When the allegation first came out, they went and handled, and I give them the greatest credit for this. They went and commissioned an independent study that was actually independent. Right? They were not. They paid for it, but they were not beholden to it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. A lot of times when you get these independent studies, it's you better find this.
Absolutely,
no matter what.
And
right?
a lot of people had come out in the beginning when that happened and said this is just another joke. This is the NHL doing their usual cover up.
Right?
So when that report dropped, now the rhetoric has changed and said this is the group that should be doing all of these investigations.
Yes, they really did a very good job in this investigation. If you've if you want to know what I'm talking about, if you on Apple TV, if you watch the series called The Morning Show, in season 1, they kind of went over something like this, where there was a quote unquote independent investigation, but the head of the network is talking to the head of the investigator, telling her what she's supposed to find.
Exactly.
So you see that a lot. So this report drops 3 weeks ago, and it drops like an atomic bomb. It's 107 pages, and it is thorough. It basically highlights one period, 2010, May 7th, 8th, in that period of what happened. But one of the things that the report brings out, and it's actually, to me, reading the report, it was the first red flag, that Aldridge was spending his time outside of team activities with the Black Aces, right? Yep. He was going, and if you don't know what the Black Aces are, during the playoffs, you are allowed to bring up younger players that can be non-rostered players that if you have an injury or something can go onto the roster, right? That's what the Black Aces are. And usually one of the reasons, and it even states this in the report, that this is done to give these guys a taste of what playoff hockey is like, what traveling is like, what the practice schedule is like, things like that. So that's the purpose of this. Brad Aldrich, who was in his second year as a video coach, is spending a lot of his time with the Black Aces, and not all the Black Aces, but the younger ones. Right? I think that the majority of the time that he spent, it kind of said they were the guys that were, 19, 20, 21, the younger, more impressionable guys.
And they were also the guys that had, we know Kyle Beach for sure. He was a top 10 draft pick. So again, they weren't the 23, 24-year-old, career minor leaguer type of guys. These were guys that were on the cusp of making the NHL, and use that power grab like we talked about earlier to say, hey, I can get you in the lineup, but you need to do this for me.
Yeah. This is the first time. This is the first, for me, red flag, and it's the first predatorial behavior that he exhibits. At least that's in the report. Right. Mm-hmm. He does have other predatorial behaviors that he exhibits probably prior to this that are ignored. Jokes, pictures sent, things like that. A lot of that is ignored but given off as, boys being boys type thing, right?
Sure.
So during the playoffs, getting up into the San Jose, him and John Doe and a couple other players are starting to have a pretty decent relationship, right? And he is telling these players, and these are quotes. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I've talked to Coach Quinville about you. Keep doing this thing, that things that he's telling them. If you keep doing this, you're going to get in the lineup. I'll keep talking to the coach about you. He's grooming them basically.
Absolutely, and they knew he had Quinville's ear. He was in those meetings, after games. They saw him in the office. So again, they're very impressionable because they worked their whole life to make it to that level. A lot of people won't understand that. They're just like, how can a 6'3", 210-pound guy be assaulted by somebody who's 5'6", 130 pounds? So it's the details they went into that report were absolutely shocking, absolutely disgusting. It was, my heart goes out to him. I can't even imagine.
I do, and one of the guys, he's not here now. I was hoping he would be on here, and I'm not calling him out. But Matt Lowe had brought up, but why was he going out with him consistently? Why did he go out with them afterwards? Well, what I think Matt Lowe doesn't understand, and it was a fair, believe it or not, I know we brought it up as possible victim shaming, but it was a fair question based on what was in the report.
It wasn't.
Right?
It wasn't worded that way. Where it came out to be victim shaming is he implied that he shouldn't have been hanging out with him because he was his superior, and you're not supposed to hang out with people that are underneath you. So he was asking for it. Like, he needs to own up to it. That's why I got mad.
That's a fair point. Well, first of all, that was the first red flag that Aldridge is hanging out with these guys, right? I can see it during team activities. But these were non-sanctioned, not team activities. When you're going to dinner, if 4 of the coaches go to dinner and ask 10 guys, that's a team activity in my eyes. When one coach asks just certain guys that he spends a lot of time with, that's an issue, right? And that's that's that big red flag that keeps coming up to me. That how did the other coaches on the Blackhawks not see this? Right? And that's not, believe it or not, that is not discussed in the report.
Yeah, I don't really know how, things were structured back then, how much interaction there was between, everybody has to understand where Aldridge background is, right? His father is the head equipment manager of the San Jose Sharks. So he's got various ties within the league already from his father. So I think guys were like, he started manipulating them right away, started putting it in their head that I can make you or break you. You know who my father is, know whose ear I got. So I think those are, Dale Town was the one who brought him in, basically got called from the GM of San Jose and said, hey, we got our head equipment manager's son's looking for a role. What do you got for him? In the report, they basically said, like, he just came in for an interview and had an offer that same day. So it kind of shows you the hockey culture.
Oh yeah.
It's, it's who you know, not your work ethic or what you do.
Oh yeah, it's an old boys network, and it's not just and it's hockey in general.
Yeah,
I'm not just talking about the league. You want to go with what we're doing, right? The Pro Hockey Writers Association. That is a definition of the old boys network. I'm sorry, I know I'm probably killing myself saying this, but no, I've sent numerous messages to them asking how to become a member, and I don't get anything back.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing on their website that says what membership implies, how to become a member. You have to be invited in. That's the definition of an old boys network.
Yep.
Right? and they control that, and by controlling that, they control the media. They control media access, right? And they really hurt people trying to get in the industry. It really destroys. It's actually destroying the industry. You look at, you go to Baseball Writers of America, right? In order to, and you go there, and there's an application form to fill out, right? I haven't looked at basketball, but I know for pro football, same thing. Their association has directly what they look for a member and an application form. Pro Hockey Writers, nothing. You will find nothing on their website about how to get in. So the Old Boys Network is ingrained all through hockey, and this goes all the way down to midgets.
Absolutely.
Right? This is nothing that, and here's the thing. While we all think this is disgusting, you know, what happened and all of that, this stuff is happening in juniors, right? Theo Fleury got kicked out of the league because of what happened to him in juniors. He wrote a book about what happened to him in juniors. He was sexually assaulted. He was raped, right? And now I do need to say one thing, and I don't mean to cut you off, bud. I have made a statement that I need to walk back. I had said before that I thought this was more sexual harassment than assault. And the reason I had originally said that was what I had heard, I hadn't read it yet, was that it was pictures and maybe putting somebody's hand on a cross. It didn't feel like it had met the level of what an assault was until I read the report. That was an assault.
Absolutely.
That was, there's no ands, ifs, or buts. If you read the report, that was an assault. And it was also the definition of sexual harassment. If you don't do this, you're never going to play in the NHL, and I'm going to break your legs.
Yeah, it's a dominance factor, right? It allows them to have control, and people a lot of times don't understand that. It's the same if it happens between a man and a woman, right? It's a dominance play. It's make them feel scared to comply, and this is just a different token of it. People don't understand it as easily because it's two grown men. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that the report came out the way it did. It was horrifying to read, but it needed to be said. And people needed to hear it.
Absolutely, it did need to be said. But go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, I was just agreeing it needed to be said.
Right. There's something about this that's come out, and I don't have anybody to hear, but I'll bring it up. One of the things that you initially heard when this came out, what's the big deal? It was 11 years ago. Right. There's something I want people to understand, and I have talked about this openly. I have talked about my mental health issues openly. Okay. While I was in the service, I went and seen mental health officials 5 separate times in 18 years. And every single time it was swept under a rug. Nope. You're fine. You're fine. But when I got out of the service, instead of taking my service record and claiming, the things that had happened to me, I didn't. Why? Because I got told for years and years and years it didn't happen. It wasn't there. It doesn't exist. Right? It took me having a mental breakdown 11 years later for this to finally come out to light that this is something I should have done 10 years ago. So there is, when it comes to things like this, and we talked about this a little bit, John Doe blamed himself for this a lot. And even in the interview, he still felt guilty. Right? I mean, I remember hearing that. I didn't see the whole interview, but he felt guilty about what was happening.
Well, and that's, we talked about it earlier. That's the victim mentality. I did something to cause this. And people really struggle. And unless you know somebody or you've been involved in something like that yourself, it's really hard to understand. But I work just like you guys do, and in my private job, we have these situations come up, and people don't understand necessarily why. And I think what makes this whole situation even more confusing is that it's two males versus a male and a female. Now
that's the part to me. That's the part of this that I think we're making a bigger deal out of than we need to make out of, right? And I understand what you're saying. I really get it, and it's a culture thing. But homosexuality has been around since the beginning of time. It's not going anywhere.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the way people perceive it is it's more commonplace that these situations happen between a man and a woman. So it's one of those deals that when it becomes a man to man, it's like, wow, I don't understand this. This guy's 6'3" and the other guy's 5'6". How can this happen? Like,
you know what?
For himself, so that's a little bit of what I'm saying. Not that it's.
Yeah. But here's the thing: Brad Aldrich made himself 7 foot 300 pounds. That's what people don't get. And when you read this report, and by the way, Chris Lambert, I will send you a link to it later. Of the report. I can't do it now because I'm on the show, but remind me later, and I'll send you a link to it. I don't want to put it out publicly. I mean, you can search for it. That's what I did, and I found it through another. I read another article, and it had the link to it. So
yeah,
I just sent it to him.
Yeah, okay. And it's up on the Jenner and Block website, the company that did the investigation.
Okay, and Brad Aldrich made himself 7 foot tall, 350 pounds, and he turned John Doe into the 5'6", 170-pound person. Absolutely, he did. Right, and you can read that in the report, right? Oh man, absolutely. I feel sorry for you right now, Chris.
Why?
It's 4-0.
I can't even watch. Don't even get me started.
Yeah,
we're struggling.
That's why I was hoping Wendy would show up, because I figured it was going to be a butt whipping. Winnipeg's a tough team, man. We got to face them here in a couple of days. But no, you get back to this now. Now let's talk about the biggest issue here. First of all, the Chicago Blackhawks mishandled this completely, right? And if you don't think, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't understand why Coach Q was quote unquote let go or fired or resigned. Coach Q walked into this meeting, was told about it, and said, I don't have time for this. I'm trying to win a championship here. That's basically how he took it.
Yeah, and I think kind of some back context for folks who don't really know. There was really a split in the management team. So you had McDonough and Q on one side, and then you kind of had Bowman and Cheveldayoff and his guys on the other. There was a lot of animosity between the sides, and this was not even discussing any of this. Just when it came to player decisions, who Quenneville and McDonough wanted to play, who they wanted to go sign as free agents. So there was already a kind of split room when it came to the Blackhawks, and now you see this probably threw even more fuel on that fire. I mean, if you saw the comments that Stan Bowman made, he basically said, hey, this was all John McDonough. We all brought it to him. He's the president. He's the one who decided. I think what really put the nail in the coffin for Quenneville was he originally came out and said, I don't know anything about this until the lawsuit. And he good and well knew that was false. And I think Cheveldayoff kind of got off because he was cooperative, and he was the one who brought himself and put himself in that room, because none of the other players in that room remembered him being there. So I think that's you saw a little bit of, if you cooperated, you got a little bit of leniency. If you didn't and you completely bold-faced lied, Quinville deserved to go. They all deserved to go. Not a single one of them. I still think Cheveldayoff should have been let go as well. And I think Bergeron should have been looked at and seen what his role was in this, if any.
There's one more. Gray, the mental health, mental health coach, right? Okay, so Tony brings up a good question here. He says, why do you keep referring to John Doe versus saying Kyle Beach? It's more personalized when the victim is known and knowledge. Okay, well, part of the reason for that was I felt originally that he was forced to have his name put out there. Chris thinks that it wasn't. I'm kind of, to me, this is kind of how I feel about it. If Kyle really wanted his name out there, the original lawsuit would have said Kyle Beach versus Chicago Blackhawks, not John Doe versus Chicago Blackhawks. That is why I kind of go that route. It just felt like until this report came out that his name didn't get mentioned until then. Actually, Kyle Beach was when his name originally got mentioned, there were like 4 other guys that I heard mentioned before him. So he was never like the guy that everybody thought it was.
Oh, absolutely. I can just tell you from, everything I heard through the grapevine that his name was not ever brought up as one of the guys. Even when they said it was somebody who was a black ace, he was, 3rd, 4th on that list you would think of.
Yeah, he just all the names that I saw like 4 names before his name actually came out in the interview, and I never saw his name. So that's kind of why I felt, and I do it that way, Tony. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I'm trying to get used to. I just don't want. I don't want it to feel like I'm using this guy, because I've been accused of this before, of using situations in my advantage. And I don't want it to make it look like I'm using his situation in my advantage. And that's why I'm trying to keep it.
Can I put in my 2 cents?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think that you're going to be looked at as using this to your advantage. His name is out there. He's done interviews. I think that there's a point there. It personalizes it more if we refer to him as Kyle.
Okay. And that's fair enough. And I'll do my best, But in the report, it does state John Doe. Right. And that's the other thing. In the report, it states it as John Doe. That they are very close. But what I was talking about, the mental health coach, and they actually had one. Right. What was his name? Gray or Gary?
Dr. Jim Gray.
Richard, what was it?
Jim Gray.
Gray, right? Dr. Gray. Yeah. Dr. Gray takes Kyle to a closet to talk about this. And then he states, well, every other place that I normally use is being used. You know what? If this is something it's what it is, you kick them out. Right? I feel like this is the first. This is a huge issue here that's not talked about. Mm-hmm. The doctor whose job it is to really handle these things blows it from the get-go.
Well, and I don't know if you saw, there's a little blurb in there towards the end where it was acknowledged by him that he has sent emails with, pictures of naked women and crude jokes and things like that to try to create a relationship with the younger players.
Yes,
so
I did see that.
That was absolutely disgusting. As far as I know, I don't believe he's with the team anymore. None of these guys should work in hockey ever again. But here we are again. I mean, this isn't the first case. Pray to God that it's the last.
Oh, no. And that's the issue for me. Think about this. 10 years. 10 years has gone by. I guarantee you this has happened again.
Oh,
not with Aldridge, with another set of people. That this has happened again. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I saw some headlines. I saw some headlines come up with Pittsburgh. I haven't read into.
Well, Pittsburgh is a different situation. Pittsburgh is now the Pittsburgh one I have a completely different feeling with, but Pittsburgh is a domestic abuse
Okay.
situation.
Well, I think it just shows, though, that these teams are going to dig in a little bit more into what's going on in the day-to-day. And really, 2010, we look at it now. Today's time in the HR world is much, much different than back then. Some companies didn't even have HR. But there was a clear path to the top. I think there was a blurb in there about John McDonough being controlling, wanted to be the decision maker, being very aggressive. So I think really some of the guys like Stan Bowman, I can't stand the guy, don't get me wrong, but how do you go against your boss? Where do you go with that? Do you go to ownership? Do you even have ownership's ear? And those are some of the things I wish the report would have gotten into, of how much involvement and how much access some of these other parties had to people above John McDonough.
And that's the part where you'll look at who commissioned the report. With no disrespect, and I'm not making any accusations, but when you look at who commissioned the report and the fact that there's nothing in the report about them, that kind of, that ties it in a little bit, right?
I agree. It can be, I think the Sopa interview that came out a couple of days ago, and Nick Boynton as well, both have come out and said they truly believe the Wirtzes had nothing to do with it. I tend to believe that, just knowing kind of how they run their businesses here in Chicago. The Hawks are their little side, this is my fun money. Let's go let's go have fun with it. We're making billions of dollars in the beverage industry. So they really, it's just being used as their toy. And it's been that way since his father owned the team. We still to this day call him Dollar Bill Wirtz.
Wirtz, yep.
So, it's when things happened in 2010, those memories will never go away for us fans, and even for the players on that team. It taints it, don't get me wrong. But I've been a diehard my whole life. I was there in 92 when we got swept by the Penguins as an 8-year-old. We had season tickets for many years. So as a fan, it's an incredible black eye. It's awful for the organization. It's very hard to support them now. But they will still be my team. I do place my trust in the Wirtz to do the right thing. And it was great to see them be proactive and fire everybody. No questions asked. And so, at this point, it's a matter of building back the faith with the fans. So that's why I think you'll go out and you'll see them hire somebody like Eddie Olczyk to come in and either be the president or the general manager to build that respect back with the fan base. Because there's very few fans in Chicago right now. The United Center was empty the other night. I mean, I've never seen that many open seats since they used to beg me to sit downstairs in 2002. So the United Center's empty. You're gonna see some changes. I think you're gonna see a complete overhaul of the team. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they recover from this.
Well, also there's two personnel here that are getting off scot-free that probably shouldn't, and I'm talking about Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. When they came out in support of Bowman, especially the fact that Jonathan Toews was the captain of the team when this happened.
Yeah, and that's the one question mark in all this is who knew what and what players knew what. Because I think they interviewed 14 players that were on the team. 6 of them said they had absolutely no idea. The rest of them said there was some rumors, but nobody knew anything factual. And those guys came out after a game where they hadn't seen Kyle's interview, and they were asked a very specific question of their thoughts personally on Bowman and those guys. And people need to understand that it probably wasn't the best time for them to have that conversation. And they were just talking from a personal perspective. You got to understand when Kane came into the league, he lived with Stan Bowman and his family. So those guys were brought up with Stan, and I think that's why you kind of saw the comments. The way they were awful. They shouldn't have done that. They should have waited. But that Kyle Beach interview came in the intermission of that game, so neither one of them had seen it at that point when they made their comments. Taze has come back and made some other comments that that he wants to reach out to Kyle, would like to talk to him. I don't know how much they knew. If they knew something, then yeah, they should be held accountable for that. But nobody's willing to come out. Brent Sopel came on and Nick Boynton came on and said, hey, everybody in the room knew. And then they asked them, oh, give us names, and they wouldn't name anybody. So that's the one gray area in all this is who knew what, who can you blame what on, how much did Taze know, how much did Kane know. I think, a lot of times star players aren't necessarily in the fray in the locker room as one of the guys, sometimes. So they're out doing their thing. They're becoming better players. They're in media a lot more, things of that nature. So could they have known? Absolutely. Do I think comments were thrown around in the locker room? Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, I've been in a locker room where things have been said and you're like, probably shouldn't have said that. It's just, unfortunately, the culture of the game. But, if they knew, they should be, held accountable. And if they truly didn't, then they should come out. I know Taze has come out and said he didn't know anything. Kane has come out and said he hasn't known anything. They didn't name names in the report of who knew and who didn't.
Yeah.
I think Sopel and Boynton were the only two that came out and said everybody knew. Everybody else said we heard rumors, but we didn't know anything specifically.
Duncan Keith was very, like he says, Tony says, Duncan Keith was evasive in his comments too. He was very evasive, and he was also argumentative in his comments.
Well, you got to understand that a lot of the stuff that was in the locker room was probably just rumors and hearsay, and it depended on what they believed. No one knew for sure what happened. So you wouldn't want to necessarily say all the rumors because it's like a game of telephone. What was really going on and what, got twisted, when it got to me.
Possible. I fair point. But the thing is, so if you go back, Brad Aldrich is a predator, right? Because he displayed predatory behavior during this period and after it. So what makes you think he didn't have predatory behavior before it? So I'm almost certain that there was somebody within that locker room on that lineup that had something to do that with Brad Aldrich, where Brad Aldrich made comments or gestures or things like that towards a active player. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, again, and this is why I commend Kyle, for coming out and doing this, because it puts a face and a name to what happened, and hopefully it'll encourage others. I mean, we know there's another person in that report that some things happened to, not necessarily there were advances, but nothing, in the sexual nature of things. So, it's going to open people's eyes. His interview, if you guys haven't seen it, it's go find it on YouTube. It's incredibly emotional. The question that really got me is they said, hey, if you saw the 16-year-old victim who he was convicted for, he broke down and was bawling and said,
he felt guilty.
He said, I'm sorry. If I could go back again, I would change everything.
No, I did see that. And that's what I talked about that earlier when he went on that. There were more victims, and we know that. And when I say we know that, it's just from history. It shows you that he was too polished in what he did. And if you read the report, you can hear the polishment that went through it. The going and having a drink. Oh, do you want a drink? Do you want another one? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do? There was some polish. You know what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. The meeting with the Blackhawks, the brass of the Blackhawks, the fact that they put winning over the players' health, that was really, I mean, that stuck out to me. They basically said, what's his name, Demarov, or the one that got fired right away. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names.
McDonough?
Say again?
McDonough?
McDonough basically said, I don't want anything that's going to mess up with the anything that's going to mess with the playoffs.
Yeah, so McDonough came out and basically said, we don't want to have a scandal going on in the middle of the playoffs. Quenneville came in and said, listen, I don't care what's going on. I'm trying to get a team here to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah. And those two are generally aligned on things, even when it came to personnel decisions. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. And I think the other three were just kind of standing in the room like, hey, okay, we told you, what do you want us to do? Type of situation. But, from the sounds of it, John McDonough was the decision maker in this. All of them are at fault. Don't get me wrong. But he seems to be the one that was kind of leading this charge to keep this swept under the rug as long as they could. And really, the director of HR reported to him, which makes this an even bigger kind of like, why would an HR person report to the president? It should be reporting to somebody outside of the team. It should be reporting to the Wirtz. So, your boss comes in and says, we're going to do this. What's the HR person to say? Okay.
Yeah. Well, see, there's another part of that report that nobody's talking about that to me is really huge. And it's in 2013 when the Michigan incident happens. The Michigan Police Department calls the Chicago Blackhawks HR and says, hey, we have this, Brad Aldrich is possibly going to be implicated in this. And they say, well, he resigned. I can't tell you any more over the phone. But if you subpoena me, I can give more information. That right there is like, wow, here's what we need. And then they drop the ball, never call him back. So the police department, I forget, the Hebron or whatever it is, Michigan Police Department is at fault here also, because in 2013 this could have come to light very quickly and possibly saved some other issues.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I mean, he was arrested and convicted in that case. So it was, unfortunately, it was a minor at the time, but there was a lot of things floating around that the Blackhawks had given him a letter of recommendation, and this and that, and a lot of that in the report wasn't there. No. One thing that was there was that Quenneville gave him kind of a glowing review after he was already separated. I was kind of disgusted in Coach Q with his handling of all this and just pretending he didn't know anything and then getting caught up in lies. Really taints everything he did here.
Well, not only that, so when they force him to resign or tell him you can either be investigated or resign, he resigns. They give him a separation, a severance, and then allow him to be part of team celebrations after that.
Exactly.
Hey, Wendy, I sent you a link, buddy. But I know you're watching the game, so it's up to you. Check Twitter, bud. So there's failures up and down the chain, all the way, right? There are failures, and to me, they go as high as the Wirtz, in the fact that the Wirtz should have known something, right? The fact that they didn't know anything is I'm sorry. I mean, you're not going to have meetings with your president and ask about things like that. Have your HR have some. HR is supposed to have, or you're supposed to have some type of third or third party type of resolution, right? Like in a company, like if I have an issue with my company, I'm supposed to have somebody else I can call to say, hey, I want to file a grievance.
Exactly. And that's why I kind of mentioned earlier the structure at the time where the director of HR is reporting into John McDonough. So, yeah, John McDonough brought the situation to them, but nobody knows what was really said in that room and what was expected to be done at that point. And nobody knows, if it's me and I'm John McDonough, I'm walking that up to Rocky and saying, this is what's going on. From the looks of it and from the statements people have put out, he kind of just wanted it to be swept under the rug. I think they just hoped it would go away. And here we are now, 10 years later and, 12 years later, and it's all coming to light. And, it's better late than never. It's just a sad situation for everybody involved.
Well, the other thing that goes along with this that's not talked about in the report is the mental health issue. The NHL right now has a huge mental health issue that they feel like they're addressing, but in all actuality, they're not. Right? It's not being addressed. And if you want to understand why it's not being addressed, two cases that I can think of right off the get-go, Jake Allen and Jonathan Drouin. In 2017, Jake Allen was given time off to have a mental reset. And I'll tell you what, the fan base destroyed him. It destroyed him. It destroyed how the fan base felt about him, and you still hear it today. And then last season, when Jonathan Drouin took his mental break, how many people did you see in groups in that say, why is he leaving the team? This is horrible. They should release him. They were all over him. Now, they gave him a great round of applause when he came back, but when it first happened, they were all over him, right? And that's something that, and that's a cultural issue. That's a cultural issue, not just with the NHL, but with with our culture, both the United States and Canada, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at things, as professional athletes, the normal layperson doesn't understand that. Like, and in their mind, how do you step away from this when you could possibly lose your job? And this is a job you're making millions of dollars at, so especially those fringe players that are third and fourth line guys. I think that's really where it's great because some of the big names can step away, right? Because their jobs aren't in jeopardy. But if you're a fourth line winger in the NHL and you can't step away from the game because you'll lose your spot. Yeah. And that's where I think the NHL fails their players, is those types of players. Because Carey Price, if needs a mental break, he can get up and say, hey, I'm Carey Price. I'm going to walk away for 6 months. Nobody's, people aren't going to be happy. I think Kathy brought up, Tuukka Rask.
Yeah.
He has the ability to do that because his spot isn't on the line. And a lot of people don't understand when you're fighting for your career, and we're not talking, we're talking little, you're making $75,000 in the AHL to making $750,000 in the NHL. Yep. So it's life-changing money for a lot of these guys. So I think the NHL's dropped the ball on concussions, and the NHL's dropped the ball on mental health.
They have, and we haven't even gotten into the concussion issue. Right now there is it looks like there's going to be an independent investigation into what the NHLPA knew and didn't know, specifically with Donald Fuhrer. And I don't know if there's going to be an investigation into NHL itself. However, it is coming out that many owners are not happy with Gary Bettman, and that Gary Bettman could be on the outs also.
Yeah, I think somebody said it best. Change has to start at the top. And these guys, both the NHL and the NHLPA need leadership changes that show that these things are not going to be tolerated.
Yeah, I honestly, so I look at this. I know. I look at what Gary Bettman's done, and I'm sorry, I'm not a Gary Bettman hater. He's the only commissioner the NHL's ever had, and you look at where the NHL is from where it was when he took over in the 80s, early 90s, to where it is now. The game is much further along. Trust me, if Bettman had not taken over, you would be playing to get into the building $250 a ticket. That's where salaries were going. Just to get into the building for a SRO, for a standing room only ticket, you would be paying $250 right now. Right? And so the fact that he did do what he did, and he did get player salaries to meet closer what teams were doing. And not only that, you'd have had a league we'd been back to a 12-team league more than likely. So I'm not a Gary Bettman hater. I understand what Gary Bettman has done and the way he's done things. But at the same time, I'm not a Gary Bettman lover, because I look at what he did, at some of the things that have happened with the Blues, and wonder if he had a memo somewhere that said the Blues can never win a Stanley Cup under my watch that he forgot to pull out in 2019.
Yeah, I'm not a Bettman hater or fan. I think he's really botched the marketing of the game in today's age. The NBA has grown, the NFL has grown, the NHL has grown at a much smaller pace than both of those sports. They don't do a real good job of marketing their athletes. Nobody watches the NHL. I mean, now they're on ESPN, so you're seeing ratings going up. I mean, getting back on ESPN and TNT, I think, was a great thing for the league. NBC wasn't a partner that was helping them at all. You get one game here and there on national television, but the rest were on, NBC Sports. So I think they did some great things with, Road to the Winter Classic and some of those types of documentary type things. And, that's what people want nowadays. And that's the type of marketing people want to see, the inside. And you see this year, the Leafs have a show out on Amazon Prime, about their playoff run, so those are the inside things that people want to see. And then I think too, that's going to open a lot of light to stopping some of this stuff from happening, right? Mm-hmm. If there's always cameras around and you can possibly be on camera getting caught saying something. I mean, you're seeing the fallout in Toronto right now with Mitch Marner. Some comments were made on that show about his performance. I agree, Kathy. It could be on better channels, and I think ESPN and TNT will help that. But some comments were made about Mitch Marner's performance in the playoffs last year, and now it's out there for everybody to see. And he's struggling. I mean, you look at him now. I don't think he scored a goal yet. I think he's got 1 or 2 points on the season. Yeah, no.
There's a so my issue with NBC Sports was NBC cared about NBC, right? Absolutely. The teams that they normally showed were teams that were part of their NBC Sports network. I remember one year for the All-Star game, the only teams that had multiple players were teams that had. Where their affiliate was NBC was an NBC Sports affiliate.
Yeah.
Right? Chicago, San Jose, Boston, New York, I think. I mean, but it was all if you were an affiliate, you got more than one player. Everybody else got one. Right? So NBC, they basically, unless you were one of their affiliates, they didn't care about you. My issue right now, and the other issue with NBC was the Stanley Cup Finals are in July, right? There's all the major shows are on their summer breaks. Why not put the NHL on the Prime when you're just showing a rerun of something anyways? and then they put it on the sports network. I'm hoping with NBC, ESPN, that some of the finals will go to ABC during prime time. Right?
Yeah, we hope. I mean, that's listen. TNT's done a great job of with the NBA. I really like what they're doing with the studio work so far. So I think this was a great contract for them, and I think we'll start to see more digital out of them. Today's world, very few people are sitting in front of a TV watching a game now. They're watching on their phones, they're watching on their tablets, they're out and about versus sitting on the couch watching. So I definitely think if the NHL is smart, they're going to go back into that arena, and ESPN's a great partner for that. We're seeing a lot more games on ESPN Plus, that you can get for whatever, $9.99 a month or whatever, and you get just about every single hockey game. Yeah,
so I mean that is a good start, but the other thing is they've got to get out of the white boy network. That is if you want to know why the NHL is where it's at, is because everyone looks at it as a white boy sport, and that's an app. I'm sorry, I know it sounds horrible, but that's the truth. That's the absolute truth. You're only appealing to 40% of your audiences.
I agree, and I think that's where TNT comes in, because TNT has such a following with the NBA that I think you'll start to see some of that. You've already started seeing some of that crossover promotion, right? I was watching even the ESPN the other night. I was watching the basketball game, and there's Sidney Crosby on a commercial.
Yeah.
So I think you'll start to see hockey's, to me, is the greatest sport in the world. You're literally skating around on two knives trying to hit a puck in a net, with guys trying to kill you on your way to it, and 6'1", 200-pound guy in the net trying to block the shot. It doesn't get much more exciting. And so I think as people get exposed to the game, you guys had that gentleman in St. Louis a few years ago, Tony X, saw a game and just went nuts. And TV doesn't do the game justice of all the major sports. Hockey is the one that, when you're there in person, is a much different game than watching it on TV.
That is a true statement.
So I think once people get a flavor of it on television, and then actually go and get tickets and go and see a game, they just fall in love with the sport.
Absolutely. Well, we're up on our hour mark. I know you said you had to go after the hour. So, Chris, thank you so much for showing up. Me and Ashley will talk Blues here for a few minutes, and then we'll probably call it out. I want to appreciate you. Thanks for taking time to talk about this. And again, thanks for the affiliation with Coast to Coast. It's going to be great. Well, Brad brought it up. I brought it up before you came on. So Torrey Krug today became the 5th Blues player added to the COVID list, and they're bringing in Kyle Rosen, right? The reason they're bringing Rosen in is a salary cap issue, right?
Yeah.
With bringing him in, they're under the cap. If they brought Prunovich in, they'd be over the cap. So that's got a lot to do with it. I think the contract that he's on is a little bit better, so you'll see that. But O'Reilly's back. He was skating with the team today. Shen has gone
back in St. Louis.
Back to St. Louis. Shen, I don't know if it's a concussion issue. Now that I see it, it may not be a complete concussion issue. Basically, whatever happened in the Chicago game where he went crawling down the tunnel got re-aggravated yesterday in the first period. So I don't know if that's a shoulder. I don't know if it's a concussion. I'm not sure what it is. But again, this is, and I got to hand it to Brew. He said it. Our depth is being tested, and right now they've got great depth. And if you've got that depth and you can make it work for you, I don't see, the only hard game I see coming up. Oh, Clifford's been on the he was already on the COVID list. Jose Clifford was already on the list. He went on the list last week. So it was Husso, then Clifford.
Husso. I thought he was before Husso.
Was he before Husso? Okay.
They were really close. They were within a day of each other.
Yeah, they were within
so.
a day of each other, or a day or two. I actually thought it was Husso and then Clifford. Right? So you really look at that with Husso and Clifford. Now, they did send Joshua back to the AHL.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they sent Joshua back to the AHL. I think he'll be back.
Oh, yeah, he'll be back. But with O'Reilly coming back, that was why he was brought up to begin with.
Yeah.
So with losing Krug, we needed a defenseman, so it makes sense to swap.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. But it also means I think Mikkola is going to get more of a chance.
Oh, yeah, because I really don't
Mikkola
see
was
them...
using his body.
I like Mikkola's game.
Right, yeah. Mikkola's game is a lot better than people realize.
But right? I've always been a fan of Mikkola. I think he's better than Wallman overall.
Yeah, I agree.
I would love to see Perunovic, Jose, but for cap reasons, they couldn't bring him up.
Yeah. So I also think sending him back down, I don't think they just wanted to bring him up. Because if they bring him up, he's probably just going to be in the press box.
Yeah.
Right? I think bringing Rosen up and putting Rosen in the press box, knowing that you have Mikkola there and Bortuzzo, mm-hmm. I mean, you can really play. And I talked about this yesterday about having Falk drop down and play mm-hmm. with either Mikkola or Wallman. Mm-hmm. So now you can really take you could take either Mikkola or Wallman and move them up and put them with Krug, mm-hmm. and then Bortuzzo with the other one. And you're not losing, or not Krug with
Falk,
and you're not losing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I really don't see you losing anything, and you've got Scandella in there, who I think's playing a lot better than people are giving him credit for. Wendy's on the warpath.
Yeah, I saw that.
If Coalition isn't fired tonight, I'd be pissed. The Hawks should be much better than their record if they had a better coach. I don't know about that, Wendy. I think Chicago's time has come. I'll tell you what, and I stand behind this, Wendy, and you can call it cold all you want. It is time to trade Kane and Taves. They're in the height to get what you can right here, right now. Trade them, trade Fleury, and go after that number one pick. Right? Because you ain't doing it. You're not making the playoffs this season. You're not. All this off ice stuff has killed you and killed. Like our buddy said, and name just escaped me. The guy we just had on. Boy, I feel dumb. Yeah. I'm good at that sometimes.
Chris?
Oh man, why did someone shoot me right in the Chris Frederick. Chris Frederick said no one was there. Right? No one's at the games and that. So Marianne Holmes has a question. Why does that not surprise me? And I say that with love, Marianne. Ask away. We got a few minutes. Fire away. Yeah, fire away. You know I'm saying that with love, Marianne. So fire away. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I really am saying this. I'm looking forward to what we see against the Ducks. Mm-hmm. Because this is, if you want to know how good of a coach Berube is, it's the next two games.
Yes.
Right? Because you can't play the same way against the Sharks that you're going to play against the Ducks, and you can't play the same way against the Ducks that you're going to play against Winnipeg. Right? They're three different teams that completely need different style of play. You got you put a rookie goalie out there against the Sharks, who came at you. You were able to withhold the tidal wave and fire back and win that game. Well, now you're playing the Ducks, who are really just, they're not a great team, but if you take them lightly, they're going to come after you. They're still an NHL team with mm-hmm. NHL players.
Yes.
And Mary asked, who does the rookie goalie remind you of? That's a good one. I really don't have anybody yet. I was thinking Riendo a little bit. He's really good side to side. I saw that his east to west was amazing. That reminds me a little of Cujo. That reminds me a little bit of Riendo. Who else was good? Mike Liut was real good. Mike Liut was one of the original butterfly goalies, so he was really good going east to west. So that's kind of, which number does he have? That I don't. You know what? I didn't even pay attention. I think he got number one.
He's got number one. He's number one.
Who was number one?
I'm looking that up right now.
In goalies, was it Cujo? No, Cujo wasn't number one. He was Liut, I think, was a number one.
I think so.
Liut was a number one. Look it up.
I'm looking it up right now.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Liut was the number one. I don't think Riendo was the number one. Yeah, it was Liut. Saying yeah, so I'm guessing it was Liut. But I said Liut right off the bat because east to west, he was one of the original. Cujo was a 31. Yeah, I knew that. Hasek, nah, I don't think he reminds me of Hasek. The one thing with him was that I was concerned about was going down too soon. Right, because he did leave this area out. Yeah, along the Ute. So, hey, I got Mary covered. No, because I want to see how this team is going to adjust to the 3 games they're playing. And I forget who said it earlier. I think it was Jose. He said, then you have Carolina and Edmonton after that, after Winnipeg. So, you've got to be able, and Edmonton right now, oh my goodness, their power play. Their kick put almost 50%. Right? And it's not just, 1, 2, and 3. Everybody's involved in that power play. They can slow it down, they can speed it up, they can move it, they can keep it solid. It's got so much variation in it. I mean, I was watching it today, and I'm just like, as they were trying to break it down. No, I did not see him last night. I apologize. I did not get a chance to see him last night. I know I seen what his remarks were today. He talked about their depth being tested, and absolutely. And you know what? I don't think COVID's done running through the Blues.
No, I don't.
So
it's just a matter of time before the next one.
Yeah, it is. And you're seeing that. But here's the thing that he did say, well, since everybody's vaccinated, their symptoms are very mild. So it's the 10 days and that's it, and we're good to go. And then they're coming back and they're not. I mean, look at Saad. He got 2 within 2 days. He's scoring goals.
Yeah.
Right. And Saad was on fire last night.
Oh yes,
right?
He
was
game.
On fire last night. So with all of that, I like what we're seeing, but I'm still holding my breath a little bit. Containing my enthusiasm. I've been a fan long enough to see this team tear my heart out.
Well, so have I.
Right?
Not quite as long as you, but I mean, we're hitting close to almost 30 years now. So they've ripped my heart out too. However, I have a good feeling.
Yeah, well, when you can remember 86 and 94, 95, the Red Wings game.
I saw that game.
And then you can also remember the President's Trophy team getting beat. Yeah, you've been around too long.
The only one I wasn't around for was the 86. I was only one.
Yeah, well, that was I will never forget I remember the Monday Miracle. I was working. I went home and because that's when they used to replay the games, but the Calgary one wasn't even on TV.
Oh, wow.
I had to find out later the next day, and it just tore my heart apart when you find out, especially the fact that they used hometown officials because of the blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that game should have been waited. They should have waited a day to play that game. So with 86, I trust me, I remember. I remember that one. And then it was Al McGinnis who helped put the dagger in our hearts.
Yeah, but then he came and tried to lead us.
And then I get Robert Morton. Be positive. I'm not being a negative Nelly.
I am positive. I'm the one that's saying that this is going to be a good year.
Yeah, she's being positive. When you guys get a chance, go watch it. I was so impressed with how much this team is bonded. Yeah, they have bonded. I will admit that. They have bonded. There has been – you're not seeing what we saw last year. That's a definite.
No, there is some cohesion this time.
There is some cohesion right off the get-go.
Which
you're
is
not
what we were lacking last season. So
yes.
It makes me incredibly optimistic about it.
Yeah, you're seeing – what am I trying to say? We're seeing a team that is playing like a team. You're not seeing individual players. And whatever the Tarasenko, I actually think the Tarasenko thing brought this team together more than it tore it apart.
Yeah, I think that it really did.
Right.
President's Trophy team. I was in college in North Dakota. Okay.
I was in Yokosuka, Japan. The game wasn't going to be shown on TV, so I went fishing with a friend. When I got home, I got told all about it. Trust me. Boy. Yeah. I think this will be a better year for us too. I hope so. He came into the locker room and they were all cheering for that rookie. Okay, I did see that.
Yeah, I saw that.
I did see that. Well said. What I'm looking for right now is for this team to adjust every single game. For the game plan to not be so rigid that they can't figure it out. I've seen a team this season adjust. And the only game that they've lost, they lost by 1.
Mm-hmm. They almost fought back. They almost.
Right. Yeah. So and if I think about it, they've only have 2 1-goal games. Mm-hmm. 1-1 lost 1. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I think everything has been more than 2 goals. So as while they're playing this, and then the offense clicked. The offense clicked. And when we went from not having 5-on-5 goals to having 5-on-5 goals, to having shorthanded goals, 3 shorthanded goals in the first 10 games. Like I said, I don't think we had 4 shorthanded goals all of last season.
And I think we made it to almost halfway mark before we even had 1.
Had 1, absolutely. I remember that. I think that was the one I called. Mm-hmm. I remember I called. On one of them, I said we're going to get a shorthanded goal in this power play, right? And that's exactly what happened. So, no, I did not, Jose. I did not. I really do not watch SportsCenter. I know that hockey's back, so they're probably starting to cover it, but I've kind of went away from that. So, Mary Anches is impressed with the shorthanded goals, and he's telling me who to go watch. There you go.
Okay, I'll check that out.
I'll check it out later, Jose. We're coming up on the hour and 30 mark. Good show today, Ashley.
Yeah, it was very entertaining, and it was nice to, get all that out. And
yeah, and when we have subjects like this, we need to talk about them. And I felt that it was handled very well. I thought that Chris did a great job.
Oh, yes, he did.
Talking about it. And he corrected me. Hey, Kyle wanted his name out. Da-da-da-da. Okay. Mm-hmm. Great. I appreciate that. It just didn't feel that way to me. And I said it, the optics, right?
Yeah,
and you cannot deny.
Also, you hadn't read the report yet, whenever you made your stance. And either had I. I mean, I didn't really read it until today. So
I actually read the whole 76 pages of it today. Mm-hmm. Right? and I was there were certain things that I was more interested in that I read over. There's things that I didn't read, that I just, I'm not as interested in this, and I would go, but the doctor taking him to a closet.
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, that was, the doctor said it was where promotional stuff was kept. Well, first of all, it shouldn't even have been there. But Kyle said it was there were brooms and mops and things like that. It was a janitorial closet.
Yeah,
at least in his eyes.
Totally unacceptable.
Yeah, and it was, and it's just that it just goes to show how piss poorly this was handled, just all the way around, right? And I wish Matt Lowe would come in, but it would have been here. I don't know why he's not. Because we weren't gonna. I mean, because I really wanted him to say what he wanted to say. I really did, right? And I wish he would have. But we really appreciate everybody.
Yeah, Chris. There's nothing wrong with what Guy was doing.
From protecting identities when felt needed. Well, I appreciate that, Chris. Right. So tomorrow, right now, the show is iffy. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to do it because we have the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of wait and see what happens with practice. We're talking about practice, not a game. Practice. Oh, come on. That's a little fun. Right? We'll see how things go. If there's not anybody else on COVID, then yeah, we'll probably do it. Or if somebody else hits COVID, maybe we'll do a show. If not, we'll wait till Sunday. I try and only want to do 6 days a week, but again, there are going to be periods where we got to do all 7. We'll kind of go from there. But the show is growing. We had fun. Thank you all so much. This is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, for Ashley Slapshot Jones, saying aloha, mahalo, and we can't wait to see you again on the next Blue Note Fan Report. Hello. And as soon as I do this, my mouth says I don't want to work. Aloha.